Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Do you ever find yourself feeling alone and isolated as a leader? Are you discouraged by the fact that you no longer make the invite list for 5 o'clock social hour? Do you feel like the decisions you have to make as a leader compromise your ability to be friends with team members? Well, today we're talking about the loneliness that often comes with leadership, and a few strategies to accept and embrace the isolation you may sometimes feel. Are you feeling exhausted, burned out, and unfulfilled in your leadership? Do you struggle with perfectionism and people-pleasing? Do you find yourself left with no time or energy to care for yourself and your family? Hey friend, welcome to the Grace-Filled Leader Podcast. I'm Tanya, wife, mom, leader, and Jesus lover. For years, I tried to find success and worthiness the world's way, only to feel overwhelmed, anxious, and unfulfilled. It wasn't until I surrendered my life and leadership that I truly found freedom. I discovered that we can be effective, purpose-driven leaders while living a life of peace and abundance. In this podcast, we're going to walk through practical solutions for doing life and leadership God's way. If you want to find fulfillment and lead with purpose, if you want to escape the chaos and find peace, if you want to find the freedom to live the life you were called to, this podcast is for you. Unbutton your blazers, sister friends. It's time to dig in. When I look back at my early years in leadership, I don't think I could have fully prepared myself for the loneliness I have often felt since, going from peer to leader. While there are certainly many wonderful blessings that come from being promoted and given the opportunity to lead people, there are also many challenges. As the person responsible for those in your charge, it's inevitable that you will be treated differently than you were as their peer. You may go from being part of the inner circle to feeling like an outsider. Unfortunately, leadership and loneliness go hand in hand. Feeling some level of rejection or exclusion is relatively normal and should be expected if you are leading responsibly. The higher you advance in leadership, the more isolation you will likely face. There are several reasons why loneliness is a natural part of leadership. First of all, it is very difficult and many times ill-advised to maintain or form deep and lasting friendships with the majority of those you lead. If you do, it can compromise your ability to be fair and effective as a leader. It can compromise your ability to make difficult decisions that are essential to the long-term success of the business. There are a rare few people who can maintain boundaries and separate personal from professional. It is possible. I'm not just talking about you as the leader, but that is true of frontline team members. If you allow fear of ruining friendships to compromise your decision-making or prevent you from having courageous, crucial conversations, at some point you will likely be seen as an ineffective leader. It is essential that you are consistent in your communication and in your actions with all team members, regardless of personal relationships. People will otherwise start to observe or assume favoritism and will begin to lose trust and respect for you. As they lose trust and respect, they will be less invested in you as a leader and less invested in the work. To a large degree, you have increased vulnerability as a leader. You have to be very discerning as to whom you can trust fully with sensitive information. Much of the information and decision-making we face as leaders is not appropriate to share with those we lead, nor is it fair to burden them with it. If you are too indiscreet in sharing personal or professional confidences, there is a risk that it will not be kept in confidence. It could be shared without your knowing or wanting, sometimes without malintent, and unfortunately sometimes with malintent. I heard a quote once that sadly often rings true. It said, "Leadership is lonely, so choose your friends wisely." Another reason you will likely experience loneliness as a leader is that you just have less capacity to maintain a multitude of deep relationships. Most of us have a fairly expansive list of colleagues, acquaintances, and even those we consider friends. But relationships that require more time and personal investment to maintain are a bit more limited. As a leader, you often have very limited amounts of time. The time you do have needs to be prioritized for family and intimate relationships. Over time, this results in fewer of those intimate friendships. It is a challenge for people like me who want to be liked and who long for depth in relationships, but they fear the commitment and the work that it requires to maintain that depth. The third thing to consider as a Christian leader is that in many ways, leadership should be lonely if we are actually growing in our faith walk and working to build the kingdom. This was a fairly recent realization to me, and ironically brought me some comfort in many ways. If we think about where loneliness comes from, it comes from our desire to feel seen, heard, and loved. It comes from our yearning to fit in, yet feeling that we don't. It comes from wanting a seat at the table, yet feeling uninvited. Now, let's look at our primary mission as Christians here on earth. Is our goal not to be more Christ-like, looking, sounding, and loving like Christ does? Is our goal not for people to see less of ourselves and more of Him in and through us? Of course it is. The Bible tells us so. This instruction is written very simply yet profoundly in John chapter 3 verse 30. The verse says, "He must increase, I must decrease." The larger the Lord grows in our lives, the more He is seen and the less we are seen. As we decrease, in other words, as our sinful human nature becomes less visible, that in itself can be a bit lonely in the sense that you no longer fit in some of the circles you once did. You may be less celebrated than those around you, maybe those who take over a room with their confidence, glamour, or charisma. Sometimes, and oftentimes, doing the godly thing will be the least popular or least recognized as representing bold leadership. So, what are a few things you can do to fight the isolation you feel as a leader? Well, to start, acknowledge your feelings, that they are normal and natural. Find a trusted friend or a coach who will listen and acknowledge your feelings without trying to fix you. Be leery of people who want to fix you. Chances are they're more uncomfortable with your discomfort than you are. You are not broken. You are just human. Second, look to form relationships and have conversations with those who get it. maybe other leaders who are or have been in similar circumstances and know how to encourage you in times of loneliness. It also gives you an opportunity to offer encouragement to others who are having similar experiences. While you may feel lonely, it does help to know that you are not alone. Engaging with others can take the form of in-person or virtual support. Maybe you want to consider a coach or a mentor to help you navigate the challenges of leadership. Maybe you want to join Facebook communities that include other Christian leaders, a safe place to share successes and struggles and get encouragement. I started a Facebook community for that very reason. I want there to be a safe place for Christian women leaders to support one another, gain insight from one another, and find encouragement through times of struggle and celebration. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to head on over and join the Grace-Filled Leader Facebook group. Join a community of women like you, seeking to grow in their leadership and faith journey, women looking for purpose in their leadership and peace in their lives. A third strategy, while it might seem counterintuitive, is to learn to find the value in alone time. Time to just be still, to be quiet and reflect. Time to just grow in relationship with Jesus. Time to read, to write, and just listen. Draw near to the Lord and really feel His presence. Take comfort in knowing that your loneliness may be a sign that you are living and leading just as you should be. The past couple of years has seemed like an especially difficult and lonely time for leaders. I have found that I need almost constant reminders of God's presence and provision in my life. Seeking Him and His will for my life seems as necessary as the air that I breathe. So just to recap those strategies. 3 strategies to consider when you feel lonely in your leadership. Number 1, acknowledge and accept your feelings as normal and natural. Number 2, engage with other people in similar positions or circumstances who understand your feelings so that you feel less alone in your loneliness. And third, find value in time alone, time to be still, and time to reflect on what the Lord is preparing you for. That's all I have for you today, friends. I hope you found some kernels of hope in this message. One thing you can always be certain of: with Jesus living in you, you are never alone, and there is always hope in a life lived for Him. Until next time, be grateful and grace-filled. I pray this episode blessed you, spoke to you, or encouraged you in some way. If so, please share it with a friend and head on over to Apple Podcasts to leave me a review. That's the only way for me to know if you are enjoying the show. Nothing blesses me more than to hear from you. Also, come on over to our free community, the Grace-Filled Leader Facebook group. This is a great place for us to support one another on our faith and leadership journey. Now to Him who can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Ephesians 3:20. Until next time, God bless you, friend.